All right, welcome everyone. This is our first Online with the CMC for fiscal year 2026. I am Pam Thomas, and this morning, Eric McKinney is going to be presenting Let's Rock Down to Electronic Avenue. He will take your questions at the end of the session, and take it away, Eric.
All right, thank you, Pam. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yay. Didn't hear you for a sec. I got scared. All right. Thank you, everybody. As Pam said, my name is Eric McKinney, and I am here to present Let's Rock Down to Electronic Avenue, where we're going to look at how to catalog some electronic resources. First, I would like to start with just a little bit about me. My name, again, is Eric McKinney. I've been here at the Cataloging Maintenance Center for almost 4 years now. I arrived here from an academic library, and that's where the bulk of my cataloging experience lies. Go Big Blue. I'm married to a high school librarian, so I guess I come by the work honestly. In our spare time, we enjoy spoiling our pets. That's Tyrion on the left there, my doggy. He just turns 11 this week. What a handsome man. Griffin there in the middle, pretending that he's a supermodel cat and looking good. And then we have many, many squirrels running around our backyard, and this one's our favorite. This is Piebald, also known as Pie. And although I'm pretty sure he considers my wife and I his pets, but that's okay. We keep him well fed. In our spare time, we also enjoy gardening, gaming, and reading, as most library folk do. With that out of the way, here is our agenda for today. I'd like to start with some definitions. Then I'll review some guidelines from OCLC's Bibliographic Formats and Standards, or BFAS, as I'll refer to it from here on out. And BFAS will be my primary guide for this presentation, although I do have other resources, and all are listed on my resources slide at the end. Then after that, we will examine some key mark fields that are used when, cataloging electronic resources. I will also look at the most used subfields for each field. I will finish up with some example bibliographic records paying special attention to our key mark fields and subfields. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to drop them in the chat beforehand if you'd like. All right, let's get rocking. All right, so I guess definitions. First, we need to look at, what an electronic resource is. So according to BFAS, electronic resources are items intended to be accessed, processed, or executed by a computer. Excuse me. The RDA definition is a resource consisting of data or one or more programs encoded for manipulation by a computerized device. The resource may require the use of a peripheral device directly connected to a computerized device, an application program, and/or a connection to a computer network. This definition excludes digital resources such as music compact discs and video discs, although it does include CD-ROMs. The terms digital resource and electronic resource can be used interchangeably, and electronic resources fall into two categories. Tangible direct access electronic resources, which include DVD-ROMs and CD-ROMs as mentioned, online resources, and others. Forms may include ebooks, including poetry, novels, handbooks, and other reference materials, journals, including full text articles and citations, databases. I think one would be hard-pressed to find a library that doesn't offer some sort of database to their patrons at this point. Streaming video and media. You might be familiar with services like Canopy and Swank that allow users to stream and watch full movies. Government documents and publications are popular to digitize for historical purposes. Newspapers and magazines. I doubt I need to tell anyone here about the shift from print to electronic newspapers and magazines over the last decade or more. Data and statistical reports. So e-journals are fantastic for research, though I do miss the days of sitting at a library table surrounded by piles of books and print journals. And video games, these are largely shifting to downloading or cloud streaming, but physical discs are still being made and distributed. For time's sake today, we will look at cataloging the first four: ebooks, journals, databases, streaming video, and media. We'll also take a look at CD-ROM since we know it can be considered a direct access electronic resource. I won't be covering documents and publications, data and statistical reports, or video games. Newspapers and magazines, will be similar to the e-journal. If there's interest in learning more about the other categories, let me know and I can do a part 2 covering those. And we're always looking for suggestions of online with the CMCs that you would like to see. So if you have anything, just let us know. All right, so the guidelines for electronic resources. The primary guideline with the online resource is that the same record should be used despite changes or differences with the item in hand. The current record should be updated rather than a new record created. And you can see the differences that, excuse me, that do not require a new record. All right, next we'll look at some of the MARC fields that we're going to need to consider when using cataloging e-resources using RDA, pardon me. We will look at the 00X's, then discuss some 3XX fields and 5XX fields that will be needed when cataloging e-resources. And finally, we will take a look at the 856 field. All right, let's start with the 006. Field 006 functions as an extension of field 008 when the resource represented by the record has multiple format characteristics. Field 006 contains a subset of the positions defined in field 008. Elements in those fields are identified by position. The input and display of field 006 elements varies by interface and selected options. The field 006 does not have indicators or subfield codes. So next up will be 007. And here we start looking at the types. So field 007 contains coded data related to the physical characteristics of the resources. In MARC 21, field 007 is a control field that does not have indicators or subfield codes. The input and display of field 007 elements vary by WorldCat interface and selected options. You can see the first half of the 007 options here. I won't go through these individually as my examples don't really pertain to any of these. I just wanted to have you be aware of them. So let's take a look at the bottom half of the list. And here are the rest of the options. I'd like to point specifically to O for optical disk and R for remote for the purposes of this presentation. Okay, so field 008 contains coded data related to the resource. It is pulled from the fixed fields. Like the 006, there are no indicators or subfields to worry about. These are the fixed fields for the online version of the journal Nature. Type is A for language material. B level is S, denoting serial. S/L is the entry convention. 0 denotes a successful entry convention where a new record is created each time a title changes, or a corporate body used as a main entry, or uniform title qualifier changes. That's a mouthful. The earlier or later title or name/title is recorded in a linking field, either field 780 or 785 on each record. The description or DESC is the descriptive cataloging form. It is coded I denoting, sorry about that, too far. It is coded I, and that's to denote that ISBD punctuation is being used. E-level is left blank. Form is O for online, or ORIG or ORIG is coded S for electronic, as the original item, i.e. this particular version of Nature, is intended for access with the computer. SRTP is for the type of continuing resource. The cataloger in this case went with P for periodical. I think J for journal would be appropriate here, but BFAS does say if less granularity is desired, P may be used. So I left it as is. Source is set to C in this case, meaning the original record was created by a cooperative cataloging program rather than a national bibliographic agency. Let's see, conf, CONF records whether or not the items are conference proceedings. 0 means no, and 1 is yes if they are. Ours is not. Int W, excuse me, is disappointingly not Lord of the Rings related. It is for recording the entire nature of the work. BFAS notes that the entirety of the work must consist of one of the listed categories, such as abstract summaries, dictionaries, legal articles, etc. Though none of the options here apply to this work, so it is left blank. Cont is similar to int W, but gets a bit more specific, allowing for up to 3 codes, so we could note abstracts/summaries, dictionaries, and legal articles here if our item contained all 3. But again, none of the options are fitting for our journal, so nothing there. GPub is also left blank if the electronic resource is not a government publication, which Nature is not. Freq, F-R-E-Q, records the frequency of release of a resource or updates to the resource. W denotes that it's released weekly. R is used in REGL, meaning the item is intended to be published or updated regularly. Use N or normalized irregular for publications that have a predictable pattern but might only publish 10 issues per year rather than 12. Use X, completely irregular, for publications that publish an issue whenever they feel like it or get around to it. DTSD, of course, is the type of date publication status. In our case here, it is C for continuing resource, currently published still. The first date, 1869, is the date it was first published. The 9999 in the second dates field denotes the item is still being published. Had it ceased publication, the ending date would be in dates 2. Here we are. And here are the 3XX fields to be aware of when cataloging resources. The 306 is for recording playing time of a streaming video or a sound recording. You might be familiar with the 336, 337, and 338 from cataloging books. We will look at the ones necessary for e-resources as we look at our examples more in depth. We will also need to look at the 347, which is the digital file characteristics, the 353 or supplementary content characteristics, and the 362, which contains the dates of publication and or sequential designation. And we'll take a little bit closer look at all of those. So let's start with the 306. It's for recording the playing time of a streaming video, a sound recording, etc. We have no indicators to worry about with the 306. However, the time should be formatted in a 6-character format. The first 2 characters represent the hours, the next 2 the minutes, and the last 2 the seconds. On the left of the slide, you can see the examples from BFAS. On the right, you can see how those look in an actual record. Note here that I catalog and take my examples from OCLC's connection, which does not use the subfield A in front of there, so that's why you do not see it, but you might need to add that depending on what platform you're using to catalog. Okay, and on to, so here are 336, 337, and 338s for each of the categories. The 336, of course, is the content type, the media type is 337, and our carrier type is 338. Note the CD-ROM, the top right, being a physical item, also contains a 334 or mode of issuance of single unit, as that is how the item circulates. And we'll take a look at these 336, 337, and 338 fields more in our examples. The sound characteristics. So sound characteristics of e-resources containing them are recorded in the 344 field. Here are the subfield options from BFAS. Not all of them will apply specifically to e-resources, but it is worth knowing them all. Let's run through them. A is the type of recording. Is it an audio cassette, video disc, audio disc, something else? B is the recording medium. There are only 3 options here: magnetic, magneto-optical, and optical. Magnetic is used for audio cassettes, magneto-optical for CD-ROMs or anything with data inscribed onto a disc by laser, and optical for CDs and DVDs, where a laser is used to read the changes in the reflectivity as a binary data stream. Subfield C records the playing speed, such as 33 1/3 for a record album or 1.4 milliseconds for a compact disc. You can see BFAS for all the speed options you can use here. Subfield D is for the groove characteristic. This is more common for audio discs like albums, where it has the grooves etched into it. Subfield E is the track configuration of the audio track on a soundtrack film, which is pretty specific. So if it's not a soundtrack film, you don't necessarily need to do this. It applies only to film rolls and how the audio is configured on them, either in the middle of the track or the center track in the middle of a roll, separate from the roll of the film. And center here is spelled with RE, the European way, rather than the ER for some reason in BFAS, and I'm not sure why that is. Anyway, on to subfield F, which is the tape configuration, and it applies only to audio tapes. They can be 2-track, 4-track, 8-track, remember those things? Subfield G, configuration of playback channels. Think here about mono, stereo, quadraphonic, or surround. Some streaming videos might note that information if they're presenting their film in one of those formats. Subfield H is where the special playback characteristics are recorded. Here's where you note the seemingly thousands of varieties of Dolby. Dolby B encoded, Dolby Digital, Atmos Dolby, Dolby Digital 5.1, Thomas Dolby. Just kidding on the last one, but it did fit my 80s music theme for this presentation. Subfield J wraps us up at the 344. It is for the original capture and storage technique, how the sound was originally captured and stored and should be recorded here no matter what manifestation of the item being cataloged. I'm not an expert on capture and recording techniques, but electrical capture digital storage is a good description for a compact disc, and electrical capture analog storage covers audio cassettes. See BFAS for more information on those. Okay, again, like the 344, this is our 347, and all subfields should be put in a separate 347. You don't want everything in one field. So for 347, we have subfield A, which is the file type, and the types we can include here are audio file, text file, program file, image file, data file, and video file. You might have seen the 347 in records for physical DVDs, where there's typically one to account for the video file, one noting the item as a DVD video, and one for the region. Subfield B is the encoding format. It gets a bit more specific than the type. Here we can record whether a text file is a PDF or a DAT file, an image file like a JPEG or a PNG, etc. Subfield C is for the file size, but it should be omitted in e-resource records, BFAS says, even if it is known, because file sizes among different iterations of the same resource might sometimes differ. So just leave that out even if you do know it. Subfield D is the resolution. If the resolution of a digital image is known, it should be recorded here. And BFAS says it should be expressed in pixels. Subfield E, much like physical DVDs, streaming video might also be coded for a specific region. It goes here in subfield E if that is the case. Subfield F is the speed of the streaming audio or video plays or the encoded bit rate. Use subfield F to record the bit rate in kilobits per second. And that brings us to the 353, or the supplementary content characteristics. Hey, I got it out. It's not really specific to e-resources. You might have seen the 353 used to note the presence of a bibliography or an index, like on the right of the screen there. Subfield A and subfield B are the most widely used subfields here. And as you can see, the same term is in subfield B as in subfield A. So you just need to repeat the terms and you're good. But let's look at a few other terms that might be used here. Also called scheme members that can be used with the 353. This image on the left was taken directly from the Library of Congress website, and I have included a link on the resources page to it. So you can see them all at your leisure. On the right, you can see that the examples are coded just like the bibliography and index examples on the previous slide, with the term in both A and B. All right. So that is going to bring us up to the 362, which is just the dates of publication and or sequential designation. And again, it's not exclusive to e-resources, but since it is needed for e-journals and e-serials, we will look at that a bit more. So now let's take a peek at the 5xx's that we want to look at. And the 5xx's, of course, are all of our notes fields. The first one I'd like to look at is the 50x, which is restrictions on access note. The 516 is the type of computer file or data note. The 533, the reproduction note. The 538, system details note. And the 588 is the source of description note. So let's take a closer look at the 506 and some of the subfields we have with it. Excuse me, basically the 506 boils down to who can access the resource. Many university libraries might restrict access to e-journals or streaming videos to their students only. We only need to worry about the first indicator in the 506, as the second is undetermined. Leave the first indicator blank for no information provided, use 0 if there are no restrictions put upon the resource, and use 1 if restrictions do apply. Subfield A are the terms governing access to the resource. You might see a note in here like available to subscribing member institutions only. Excuse me, or other terminology like that. Subfield B is the jurisdiction or the person in charge of coming up with the terms of access. Subfield C, physical access provisions dictate any special arrangements needed to access physical resources. Subfield D, authorized users, is a bit weird. BFAS defines it as the class of users or specific individuals by name or title for whom the restrictions in subfield A do not apply. You can see the example they provide above the, nope, I missed that, I'm sorry. Subfield E is authorization. It is similar to subfield D in that the entity in subfield E is the one responsible for the restrictions listed in subfield A. Subfield F, standardized terminology for access restriction, also known as STAR, and you can use the standard terminology for access restrictions terms, or you can use your own. And we will look at the standard terminology for F on the next slide. Subfield G, the availability date only needs recorded if the resource will be opened up to unrestricted online access. Use the format YYYY MMDD, the same as you would in subfield 2 of the 084, if you are going to use the subfield G in your 506. Subfield Q, we jump to Q in our subfields because the other four letters got the X somehow. So subfield Q is the supplying agency. Similar to what we have seen before, subfield Q is describing the institution responsible for the information in subfield A. It can be in text form or code form. The example provided by BFAS is below the access. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it'll be on our next page. I forgot to change that one. Subfield U is lastly the uniform resource identifier. It's usually where the URL goes. And it's simply a URL that leads to more information on whatever restrictions are in place on the item. So quickly, let's take another look at the bit more on the 506 with a couple examples here. In the table there on the right, you can see the preferred terminology for subfield F. Below that, it is an example of its use, closed until January 1st, 2068 with no online access. Good luck getting a hold of that. Note star in subfield 2, but remember, BFAS does say you are allowed to use your own terminology here. So you can use the recommended terms, or if you have something else you'd prefer there, you can use that as well. A lot of the information that is provided here in the 506 can be used again later in the 856. So we'll take a look at that more later also. The 516 is the type of computer file or data note. There is only a single subfield in the 516, but we can set the display content controller in indicator 1. Indicator 2 is undefined. Leaving indicator 1 blank will display a constant of type of file before the note. Use 8 in indicator 1 to omit the display constant. A broader term might be used here, such as computer program or game. You can see the examples on the bottom right. So for the graphic files, computer program, numeric, etc., or the last one written in DBase 3+. Just let you know what sort of files we're dealing with here. So let's take a look next at the 533. It's the reproduction note. For brevity's sake, I won't take as much time describing all the subfields for the 533. For once, they actually have straightforward descriptive names. Thanks, BFAS. However, BFAS does have specific guidelines for e-resources. Use field 533 for information describing a remotely accessed electronic reproduction of a work previously published in printed form, including electronic books, and as outlined in the Library of Congress, Rule Interpretation 1.11a. Apply this practice only when the reproduction manifestation is represented by its own bibliographic record, separate from any record for the original print version. And then you can also see in BFAS section 3.1.1 for online resources and 3.3.1 for electronic resources for more information on the reproduction. 538 is the system details note. It's a bit reminiscent of the 506, except for it records how the resource is accessed rather than who can access it. You can see from the BFAS example, there are terms that can be taken from our 344s and our 347s, Blu-ray, region, system requirements, things like that. No Thomas Dolby. Here we are. Okay, the 588 or the source of description note. Yay, this field is all for the catalogers. It is for tracking and controlling metadata and contains notes that are of interest to other catalogers. It's like we're passing notes to each other in class. Again, the first indicator is used for the display content controller, and the second is undefined. Leave it blank for no information provided. Use 0 for source of description and 1 for the latest issue consulted if you're cataloging a serial. And the 588 is now where information such as cover title or title from the spine should be recorded rather than in the 500 or the general note. And now our 856, which is a pretty lengthy one and has tons and tons of fields, but we won't need to look at all of them. So here's where we record the information needed to access our electronic resource. As our helper on the slide is pointing out, and I just want to say, wow, PowerPoint stock images have come a long way since I first put my first PowerPoint together. But anyway, again, there are many subfields for 856. Not all are used in today's cataloging. I think the most common usage for the 856 is for URLs, so I'll concentrating specifically on those. But here's a quick review of the other access options and their first indicator number. Leave it blank for no information provided. 0 for email, 1 for FTP, 2 for remote login, such as Telnet, 3 for dial-up, remember that stuff, 4 for HTTP, which is the most common, or 7, which the method will be specified in subfield 2. The second indicator records the relationship of the item to where the URL leads. If it is to the resource itself, use 0. A version of the resource, 1. A related resource, 2. Component parts of the resource, 3. Version of component parts of the resource, 4. And use 8 if you do not want to display constant generated. When using the 856 to note a URL, BFAS says the most common data fields used are 4 for the first indicator, subfield U for the URL, and subfield 3, which might be used to specify what the data links refer to. Enter the most generally accessible UII, uniform recess identifier, which will be our URL in this case, that's available. If the URI is restricted, leave out any proxy information and just record the base URL. There are several subfields that are no longer used and others that are optional for use. Let's do a brief rundown. A is the host name. BFAS notes this is rarely used in current cataloging. The full host name can be listed in subfield U. C is the compression information. One example is if the URL leads to a zipped folder of data, subfield Z can be used to note what is needed to unzip it. Subfields D, E, and F are not used. The path, data provenance, and electronic name, not used in today's cataloging. Subfield G is the persistent identifier, the PID, a number assigned by a PID resolver for automatic for automatic access, pardon me. Subfield H is non-functioning uniform resource identifier, is a URI that is no longer functional. Subfield M, contact for access assistance, is not used. Subfield N, terms governing access can be taken directly from our 506A. Subfield 0, the operating system, is not used these days. Subfield Q, electronic format type, is taken from the IANA media types list with terms like text, haptic, font, image, etc. There is a link to the full IANA media types list on the resources slide. And finally, subfield R here has standardized information governing use and reproductions. And here we can use our star terms such as unrestricted online access, etc. And to finish up our 856, subfield T is the terms governing use and production. Also, we can look at our look at the 540A for that. And the subfield U, of course, is the uniform resource identifier, and that's where the URL is put. Subfield V, oops, sorry, carried away. Wrong way. All right, subfield V are the hours access method available, and that one is not used. Subfield W, record control number, is a system control number of a related record. So you could maybe put the print version in subfield W, the OCLC number for it. Subfield X is a non-public note, and that's a place to place any internal notes about the resource that you want library staff needs to know. Subfield Y is the link text, and you can put here the text that you would like to appear instead of the big old ugly link that most access things generate. Typically things like click here to access, terminology like that usually works there. And subfield Z is the public note, and that's a public-facing note for patrons and containing any necessary information they might need to access the electronic resource. All right. And here, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I just wanted to show you, this is just one page of 856s from the online version of the journal Nature, and there are 6 in total. So these can be, quite extensive. All right, so we've been through all that. Now let's look at some examples, and we'll pay particular attention to the fields and subfields discussed. And let's start with an ebook. All right, now this is the whole bibliographic record for the ebook version of George Orwell's Animal Farm. Yep, up here, it's a big old ugly mess, but don't worry, we're not going to cover all of this. Let's look at our electronic resource specific fields and subfields for Mr. Orwell's Animal Farm. Okay. Okay, so up here, the ebook, the type we have is A. It's still a monograph or textual monograph. Description is still I. Let's see, what do we need? Form is O for online. It's not a conference pub. GPub or Festschrift. It is fictional. And let's see, DTST is coded for publication and copyright date. The 006, of course, is derived from the 008, which is the stuff we just discussed here. The 007, all right, the A is category of material, so that's set to C for computer. Subfield B is the specific material designation. Oop, I have that wrong. This says O for optical disc. Apologies about that. Okay. Let's see, D is the color content. Subfield E is for the dimensions, and it's set to N as it's not applicable to our E resource for Animal Farm. F is sound, also set to U. That's for unknown, though it could be N. Subfield H, file formats, is unknown. Subfield I, quality assurance targets, is N for not applicable. J for antecedent/source is a U for unknown. K, level of compression, also U for unknown. And L, the reformatting quality, is also not known here. And again, here you can see our 336, 337, and 338 for Animal Farm. So now we can look at the rest of the record that applies. The 588, the source of description. We talked about that earlier. That's just where they got the information for the title and everything. You can see it's from Overdrive, and it was viewed on January 5, 2021. And our 856s are down here, and there are several. None of them lead, I don't think, to the resource itself. So, and that's what the 856, the second indicator. An indicator of 0 indicates a networked electronic e-resource, which is appropriate for a book viewed on Overdrive. And let's go back to our journal, Nature. All right, we've already looked at the fixed fields up here when we went over our fixed fields earlier, so I'm not going to go over there as much anymore other than point out the form is O for online. And we got our dates, and the DTST is for C for continuing. Our 006, again, it's pulled from our 08, so you don't have to worry about coding that. Our 007 and subfield A, I have C for electronic resource. Subfield B, or the specific material designation, is R for remote. Subfield D, or color content, is C for multicolored. Subfield E, or image bit depth, is not applicable to our item, so it is coded in. 362, that field is the dates of publication. And with subfield A, volume 1, number 1. And there's our source of description for the e-journal. We can see the source was taken from volume 88, number 8, which was viewed on the ESA website September 12th, 2007. Yep, and there's our e-journal. Back to our 856 page for the online version of the journal. With so many to deal with, you can see they are formatted with just the OCLC recommended indicators and subfields. Remember, a first indicator of 4 indicates HTTP, and a second indicator of 0 means it is a version of the original resource. Subfield 3 can be employed to differentiate what volume and issue the links lead to. All right, our CD-ROM. It's called Harvesting the River. The Illinois State Museum recently sent several VHS tapes, audio cassettes, compact discs, and CD-ROMs that they have never had cataloged. One of the CD-ROMs contained audio clips for potential use in the exhibit Harvesting the River that appeared at the museum from December 2018 through May of 2019. Remember, though, it is on a physical disc. It is still considered a direct access electronic resource. So let's take a look at our specific fields. Okay. So type in our fixed fields is M for computer file. Let's see, the form, again, is Q. For direct electronics, since a computer is needed to access the files. 007 for a sound recording, since they are audio files. Subfield A is S for sound recording. Subfield B is D for sound disk. Subfield D is F for 1.4 milliseconds per second, and that's the speed at which a compact disc spins or revolves. Subfield E, configuration of playback channels, is unknown, so U is appropriate for that. Subfield F is the groove width or pitch, and compact discs do not contain grooves, so N for not applicable works best here. Subfield G, the dimensions, is G for 4 3/4 inches or 12 centimeters, the diameter of a compact disc. Subfield H, tape width, of course, is not applicable to a disc. Subfield I, tape configuration, also not applicable. Subfield J, the kind of disc, cylinder, or tape. I went with instantaneous, which basically means it was recorded on the spot, because it definitely was not a master of any sort, nor was it mass produced. Other designations like the mother, an exact copy of the original, a stamper, a negative metal part produced from the mother, or a test pressing just didn't seem to fit it either. Let's see, subfield K in our 007 is the kind of material. What is it made from? M for plastic with metal is the option we already use for compact audio discs. So I have that in K. Subfield L, the kind of cutting. Compact audio discs are not cut, but pitted. N for not applicable is used here. Subfield M is the special playback characteristics. The exact playback characteristics are not known of this CD-ROM, so U is coded here for unknown. And see, subfield N is the original capture and storage technique. I coded this D for electrical capture digital storage. All right, now the second 007 is for the electronic resource part of it. So I have subfield A coded as C, and that is for electronic resource, and B is O for optical, since the item is a CD-ROM. And then we can look at the rest of our fields. The 300, of course, it's digital sound is 4 3/4. Here is our 306, and the compact disc was a total of 28 minutes and 58 seconds. So I have the 002858, and of course it's a single unit. In RDA content and audio, spoken word in our 336, audio in our 337, audio disc in our 338. And continuing with Harvest the River, we also have a bevy of 344s and 347s that we can put in there. You can see I've got a subfield C, 1.4 millibytes per second. 344 subfield A is digital. Subfield B is optical. And of course, since it has sound, we have its subfield I of sound, and there's my electrical capture digital storage noted there. The 347 notes it is an audio file, and it is CD audio in subfield B of our 347. And let's see, our 588, the title was taken from the container. And our 856 for this one just contains the URL. So I got the 4 for HTTP and 0 for, it's not the resource itself, but it's a related resource. Okay, so let's take a look next at a database. Again, this is a big, ugly record that I'm not going to go through all the way, but it's for Swank Digital Campus, which is a popular streaming video service that a lot of colleges and universities are using. It's a publisher that provides over 30,000 films, documentaries, television shows, etc., for student use. So let's take a closer look at that. All right, so in this case, up in our fixed fields, our type is G for projected medium. B level is I for integrating resource, and Swank is often updated with new movies. Tech is C. Okay, I'm sorry, tech is C, as Swank offers both live action and animated films. And DTST is also C for continuing resource currently published. And I think TMAT is V for video. Should take care of that. Again, there's our 006, just pulled from our 007s. Let's see, our first 007 is subfield A, C for electronic resource, accounts for the resource itself. Subfield B is R for remote. The second 007 to account for the videos the resource contains. Subfield A is V for video recording. B is Z for other. None of the other options really fit here. Video cartridge, video disc, video cassette, video reel, or unspecified. Let's see, subfield D is M for mixed, since Swank offers black and white and color films in its service. Subfield E is for the video recording format. Again, Z for other is most appropriate code. Others include DVD, Blu-ray, 8mm, Laserdisc, not necessarily streaming things. Subfield F is the sound on the medium, or is it separate? A means the sound is included on the medium. So we use that there because Swank does include the sound, luckily. Subfield G, medium for sound, is Z for others. The others other options here all deal with physical media. Subfield H, dimensions do not apply to streaming movies, so Z for other again. And subfield L, configuration of playback channels. Swank does not list this, so U for unknown is the most appropriate choice. All right, and again, we have a bevy of things here for our resources. Let's see, 300 is an online resource with sound and color. Our 310 shows it's continuously updated. And here we have two 336s, one for the two-dimensional moving images that Swank provides, and then the text you need to find those images. 337 is computer. 338 is online resource. So we could put a monochrome in there because I know they also have black and white content. So I think we could add a 340 of G monochrome to go with our polychrome there. They are digital, so subfield A of our 344 notes that. They are presented in stereo, it's 344G. There are video files and audio files. So we note that in our 347. B is the silver light, is just is what they use, is what they call their streaming service. And it's streamed at 128 kilobits per second. So that can go in subfield F there. The 362 questions, is it 2012? We're not quite sure when Swank officially started. Here we have 506, noting that this resource is available only to current faculty, staff, and students of Columbia University. And they put in a 546, don't necessarily need that, but that's true. The films are in multiple languages. The 538, current recommended system required, are available in the FAQ area of the website, because those might change from time to time. 588 is description based on the contents viewed on August 23, 2019, title from publisher's website. And don't really need the 7. Okay, and the 2856s again are just leading to the specific instances for Columbia's instance and Bernard's instance. I think I just would have, again, you can use just swank.com or .net down here if you'd prefer not to point to the specific instance. All right. So now that we have seen the record for Swank, we can look at one of the movies it offers. This is the full record for the Swank version of the best movie of the year so far, Sinners, a delightful tale with fantastic performances in music and dancing vampires. Again, we're not going to look at all this because it's a big, big record. Here's going to come the rest of the record. Lots of 700s in there. All right. So over here, again, we have our streaming media and video with Sinners. And the first 007 for electronic resource portion. Subfield A, C for electronic resource. Subfield B is R for remote. Subfield D is C for multicolored. Subfield E is N for not applicable, as there are no dimensions mentioned. And subfield F, FA indicates sound is a part of the resource. Of the 007 for the video portion, subfield A is V for video recording. Subfield B, Z for other, since it is not a physical item. Subfield D is C again, since the film is in color. Subfield E, or video recording format, is also Z, since it is not a physical item. Subfield F, A, sound is directly on the medium. No other equipment is needed to hear it. Subfield G, medium on sound. Again, it is not a physical item, so we use Z for other. Subfield H is the dimensions, which is also Z for other in our case. And finally, subfield L is U for unknown, as the configuration of playback channels is not mentioned. And so then we have our 3 XX fields, one online resource, sound and color, and it's an hour and 37 minutes. I thought it was longer than an hour and 37 minutes. No, there's our 336s, two-dimensional moving image, 337 of computer and video, and online resource and other to round out the 338s. Oh, there we are. And it's digital. Our 344s are to cover digital, and in fact, it has sound on it. 347 is a video file, and it is noted that it is an MPEG 4, I believe is what Swank uses, and they've included a 380 of motion pictures. And I think that, yeah, that's good. All right. All right. So there's nothing highlighted on this slide. It is more for showing what is not there. I'm guessing that the title was taken from Swank's homepage, but I'm not certain. So there's no 588 to, I'm sorry, to note where they took the center's title from. And let's see what else. There was no 856 since it would point to a local access restricted title. But again, BFAS does say that the base URL is fine in those happenstances. And I believe we have reached the end. Yay, yes, we have. And here are the resources that were used in today's presentation. Here are the folks on the call with me today. Barb Scobie, CMC cataloger, Dr. Pamela Thomas, the bibliographic grant manager. I can't talk now. Mary Cornell, the CMC cataloger. Moi, Kat Anderberg, the metadata cataloger. Ryan Rafferty, special project cataloger. Katie Roberts, special project cataloger. And Andrea Joyce, the special project cataloger. So are there any questions that we can answer? Excuse me, I need a drink.
Hi, Eric. There was one, is the 506 able to be a local extension? And I replied yes when you have a subfield 5 with institution, which the field applies, but also can be used for other restrictions, such as open to investigators with permission of the Clark family. But if you want to expand on that, please feel free.
Well, that's exactly what I would have said.
Okay.
You nailed it.
No,
right. You nailed it, but you have it. Yeah, that's okay. Correct.
And then we've got another question. Why would a streaming movie not include a 334 field?
A 334? Yes. I guess it could, since it does go out as I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? I guess I didn't, since it's not a physical item. Like not a tangible. Yeah, because I'm not sure, because you're not really, with Swank and services like that, you're just really go and get on any movie you want to download.
Well, Mary also she added a mode of issuance of a manifestation that is issued as a single physical unit or intangible single logical unit.
There you go.
So yeah, it could have been added. I did post the link for the evaluation form. We strongly encourage everyone to please fill that out because we always want feedback and new topic suggestions. And we will post this recording to L2. The handouts are on L2 right now, having some technical difficulties getting the notes with the slide that may or may not be resolved. So we'll keep you posted, and we'll send out the recording link probably early next week when it's ready. And next month, we'll be presenting Just Dewey It, the basics of Dewey Decimal Classification. So if you haven't registered for that and that sounds interesting to you, please do that. And all of our Online with the CMCs for FY 2026 are on the second Thursday at 10 a.m. and they are all in L2. Gail asked, it doesn't look like the 506 is a local extension in Alma. Does anyone else know how that works?
Ooh, I'm sorry, I don't know Alma.
Gail, you might want to ask somebody at Carly, or if there's like a Alma discussion board somewhere. Okay. Gail says she will ask. All right, any other questions? Either about today's presentation or just any general cataloging questions we can try to answer. And you are able to unmute yourself if you are in a quieter environment, if that helps. Okay, no other questions? Well, I want to thank Eric. It's an awesome presentation, and hopefully we'll see all of you next month. I'm going to stop the recording.